Good afternoon. It is 18 degrees at the Loyola campus at Concordia University. I'm Stephanie Cram. Here are today's top headlines. Molotov cocktails are being thrown in the streets of Athens. We'll find out what the PQ's tax increases will mean for your bank account. And graffiti goes mainstream in NDG. And now with our top story, here's Nick Lauer. The war in Syria and the conflicts in Lebanon and Iran may seem disconnected from what is happening here in Montreal. But a group of students at Concordia University is hoping to spread the word of what is happening overseas. The group, called the Anti-War Efforts Concordia, has organized events on campus to spread their message of peace. 2 events are planned for this week. Tomorrow, at the corner of McKay and Maisonneuve, the group will have live DJs playing and will be handing out pamphlets on what is happening in the Middle East. And on Thursday, the group will be screening a documentary called The Green Wave at the School of Community and Public Affairs. The film looks at the ongoing fight for democracy in Iran. A representative from the group says they hope the film will put a human face to the ongoing conflict.
Remember, the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason, and plot. What shall we do with him?
What you just heard is the annual Guy Fawkes bonfire in Edenbridge this past weekend. This year, the Edenbridge Society decided to burn an effigy of cyclist Lance Armstrong. Even though the bonfire was over the weekend, today is the official Guy Fawkes Day. The annual event has taken on 2 very different meanings. In the UK, the day celebrates the government's ability to foil Guy Fawkes' plot to blow up the British Parliament, whereas activists across the world use the day to speak out against capitalism and state control. For instance, over the weekend, activist group Anonymous hacked into the NBC website and Lady Gaga's fan site. The group has released a statement that they plan to hack Facebook later today. Those are the sounds of the Greek protest aired on Russian television today. People were throwing Molotov cocktails at police in central Athens. The clash between police and protesters erupted from an union-organized march. The march attracted 50,000 people and united Greeks against the country's spending cuts and tax hikes. Since 2010, Greece has been dependent on loans from other European countries and the International Monetary Fund. The Greek finance minister and prime minister created an €11.5 billion austerity package for 2013 and 2014, and the country expects €2 billion from increased taxes. This protest comes just days after the anti-austerity demonstrations in Spain.
Welcome back. You are currently listening to the Tuesday edition of Off the Hour, CKUT's community news program. The time is currently 5:34. So right now we have an interview with Dorian Marina from Free Speech Radio News about the program's emergency fundraising campaign in order to keep the program on the air. So we have Dorian on the phone right now. Hi.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Yeah, great to hear from you. So to start things off, for listeners who are unfamiliar with Free Speech Radio News, can you explain what the program is?
Sure. Well, Free Speech Radio News is a daily newscast of breaking news, features, analysis. We air on about 100 Pacifica network stations and community-based stations across the country. And we began actually back in 2001, and that's when a few dozen freelance reporters started producing a weekly program. And the idea of that was to really produce community-based reporting that had these grassroots voices and stories in the stories that listeners couldn't hear in other places, that people weren't hearing in the mainstream. And after about a decade, or a little more than a decade, we are now a daily newscast, and we have about 200 contributing reporters across 6 continents.
Okay. And where does the program receive its funding from?
Well, the majority of our funding does come from the Pacifica Foundation, and that's where our current struggles and challenge comes from. As probably many of your listeners know, and other people are aware of, Pacifica has its own challenges at this point, and since we depend on that for our own programming, we also feel that, and that directly affects our ability to get the newscast out and to bring it to listeners every day.
For sure.
But I should also add we are also our funding is mixed, so we do depend on listener support and donations as well, and we do have a very committed and a generous pool of supporters and listeners that help keep us on the air as well.
Okay, and your emergency fundraising campaign that's happening right now, it's to raise $35,000 by March 15th, and it's a further amount by what date?
Yeah, that's correct. That's by the end of April. Our board of directors has decided that we are unfortunately set to go off the air March 15th, unless, as you say, we were able to raise $35,000 in the next 2 weeks. Then another $35,000 is needed to continue the program through the end of April, and at the same time, our organization is working to develop longer-term plans and longer-term streams so that we're sustainable, moving forward.
Yes, for sure. And can you explain why it's so difficult for independent programs to stay on the air? What are some of the barriers you guys face?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a great issue that you bring up. We're not alone in meeting these challenges and having these challenges. I should note, we even as of now, we operate on very few resources and a very small staff. As I noted, we do have a pool of like 200 freelance reporters from across the globe that contribute regularly to our program, but we have a very small core staff that is very dedicated and committed and works very hard. I think that the strength of an organization like ours is that it can draw on all these sources, these reporters who are based in the communities that they report on, but as well, it's a challenge of an organization that are like ours that is committed to a collective structure, a non-hierarchical structure, to put a newscast together, given the media landscape. So I think there's a lot of potential for an organization that are like ours and a newscast like this. But as you know, there are many challenges in trying to get this kind of news out to listeners that really are seeking it.
Mm-hmm. And I guess just more as a personal note, since I am a journalism student, the freelancers that you guys hire, are they provided a stipend for their work that they do for you, or is a lot of it volunteer based? Oh, no.
We are very committed to paying reporters for their work, and every time a journalist airs their work on FSRN, they are compensated. I mean, we would always love to be able to offer higher rates, of course, but all our journalists are paid for their work, are compensated for their work, and many of them, especially across the world, we feature a lot of international news, and we have a very dedicated pool of reporters, and many of them are working in dangerous conditions, are putting themselves in risk to get these stories out. And we are committed to compensating them for their work and to providing as much support as we can for them. And I should also note, part of our mission is to help develop newer journalists as well, grassroots journalists. So we do try to invite journalists who don't have as much experience to work with us, and we mentor them, and we take them through the editorial process, the fact-checking process, developing sources, etc., and the crafting pitches, and we try to get them to the point to be able to tell their own stories, produce their own stories. So we do offer that component of our program as well.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. So there seems to be this idea floating around that social media has opened up possibilities for independent journalists. I was wondering if you think that this is a realistic interpretation, or the opposite, is big media corporations further monopolizing the industry?
Well, I think if it's possible, we're seeing both. We are seeing the further consolidation in the media landscape. So we're seeing the diversification of media decreasing in a certain way, and that poses a real danger for the ability to get out different points of view, the ability to challenge the voices that come from the power structure, those who are automatically privileged with having more access to airwaves or more access to television stations, etc. So I think we are seeing that, and yet at the same time, we're seeing this explosion in social media and online and with other new technology tools that allows citizen journalists, community-based journalists, and actually many of the journalists that we work with as well, to produce their own stories, to capture audio, film, multimedia components of a story, to be able to access information, to be able to verify statements made by people, and put it together, and then to be able to distribute it, to be able to get it out to listeners, and to have that interaction with listeners and with readers. So I think we do need to be very vigilant about the consolidation of media in one aspect, and who gets control, who's gaining control of media outlets, and at the same time, there is this opportunity, I think, and FSRN is a great example of an organization that really came from grassroots, from local places all around the country, and has grown into a national and global network that is able to use this new technology in ways to tell these stories that are important to people on the ground.